Hi, Meg. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I mean, I think you pretty much covered it all. Just excited to be here and really thankful for this opportunity to be able to share more about NPower and the wonderful work that we do.
Dear Lord, it's my only job and I always lose my mute button at least once a day. So that was it. Now we're good. All right. Can you talk us? I give kind of the high points, but could you tell us a little bit more about what your journey was like as a veteran coming to NPower?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of different highlights from my personal journey that resonates a lot with the veteran and military community. First and foremost, one thing I always like to remind people is a lot of our veterans, a lot of the wonderful men and women that serve overseas are pretty young. A lot of them are just fresh out of high school and then go into the military and have incredible experiences and incredible jobs and roles. But once they're done with that, it, there was such a structured environment that they existed in that provided for them in so many ways. And while they learned a lot and have invaluable skills, it's hard to translate that or to kind of start almost over once you're in the civilian workforce or civilian workplace. And that's kind of where I was at. I got back from my deployment. I didn't really know where to start. And coming from an infantry MOS, I didn't feel like I had a lot of relevant skills to offer the civilian workforce. So I kind of there's a little bit of an unfortunate stereotype that, most kind of infantry MOS people end up in a emergency response, law enforcement, firefighting role. And while those jobs are incredible and so essential to all of us, I think sometimes veterans feel like they have no choice but to go into those things because they don't see the kind of other opportunities available to them. And so that's where I struggled. I didn't really know where to go. I ended up in security, and I learned a lot in that role, but I didn't see a career for myself in it. And I didn't feel like, I kind of had a hard look at myself one day. Like, is this all I want to do? But again, I didn't see the path forward. I didn't see where else I could go, what else I could do. And then I discovered NPower, took a gamble on it. Sounded too good to be true when I first heard about it, but I'm glad I decided to give it a try. And now I'm on a career path that I never could have envisioned for myself when I just left the military and just came back from my deployment. So yeah, that's a little bit more about my story. Meg, you're on mute again.
See, that's what I did. I called it out and said I was not going to do it again. I jinxed myself. No, I think this. We've talked about this a lot. I've been on like three other chats today, and we've talked about this transition a lot and a lot about how you're right. You have kids who are coming out of high school, going into the military, and my husband was one of them. Where you do your 6, 7 year stint, and then you're ready to leave, and it's like, okay, but what happens next? And while you were incredibly specialized and probably had a lot of responsibility in the military, you're now leaving. You, like you said, that experience. It's not that it doesn't translate, but the conversion seems very confusing. You're trying to go from military language to civilian, which is like just totally different. And not only is that there going to be that like lack of confidence because, like you said, you feel, even though it's not true, but you feel like you don't have that many options, and it just becomes not necessarily self-limiting, but you're also used to working within the military structure, right? Like you signed a contract and you are with them for the next however many years. You don't get to say like, I don't like this job anymore, can we trade? Like, can I go do that for tomorrow? So I think it makes a ton of sense that like you see the paths other people are taking and those seem more familiar. It does have more of that structure in it, but yeah, it's got to be terrifying as well as like really like demoralizing, to feel like the things that I used to do, I can't do out here. And also, especially if you're very young, you looked like you had a lot of responsibility. And now it's like, well, I have to start all over again, like all over again. Like that has to be just infuriating in a lot of ways. So yeah, I can absolutely understand it would be a lot to handle. Um, what do you think? What is it about NPower's programs that are specifically designed to support veterans and active service members as they're transitioning? What do you think it is about the Empower programs that really work for vets?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I just want to comment that I completely relate to and agree with what you said. It's very disorienting, you know, coming out of it and being kind of young and having had so much responsibility and training, and then, you know, a lot of the times it just feels like starting from square one when you're going back into the civilian workforce. And so it's very disorienting. And one of the ways that NPower really focuses on providing and helping veterans, National Guard, reservists, military spouses, is to really showcase the kind of unique skill sets and abilities that they bring to the workforce, and to cultivate that mindset within, for example, let's say the veterans specifically, cultivate the mindset of helping them start to see the value of their experiences, of their skills, of their abilities, and to show them how to communicate that in the workplace. Um, for just speaking about my own experience directly, right? Just realizing how I can talk to project management concepts and ideas during an interview, how I can talk about leadership, how I can talk about getting things done in a orderly, structured way, ensuring compliance, you know, all of these terms which are very valued in the civilian workforce have are rife within the military system, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
veterans may not see that, wow, they actually have a lot of experience in compliance. They have a lot of experience in, let's say, inventory management. They have a lot of experience in project management. Um, they have a lot of
Yeah, like
experience
it's
in
almost like
leading.
a language barrier in some
Right.
ways.
Beautifully said. Exactly right. So NPower, first and foremost, addresses the language barrier and teaches veterans how to be able to communicate effectively within the civilian workforce, while also just supporting them with wraparound support that makes them feel more confident about being able to enter into the roles and pursue a career in technology.
Yeah. Okay. When you think of vets, what unique skills or perspectives do you think they bring to the tech industry, and how does NPower help them to really leverage those strengths and those skills?
There's a ton, right? And it's also very diverse because it depends on the MOS, the kind of training that veterans or
Exactly.
military members went through, how many years of experience they had, the kind of teams they had led. So we acknowledge the diversity of the military experience first and foremost, and make sure to understand the unique strengths every veteran brings to the table. But you know, some trends, if we want to talk about it. One, being able to think in a very structured and organized manner. Um, Spending years in a structured environment tends to make you approach things in a very structured way. You know, you have
Yep.
systems and processes and things that ensure that you deliver a quality result time and time again, especially in high stress environments. So that mindset is so valuable to a lot of employers. You know, where they can bring a veteran on board and they'll be like, okay, this is the problem. Okay, here's a solution. Here's how I want to approach it. These are the steps I want to take, and so on and so forth. And then just
Mhm.
leadership ability, you know, and I say project management ability. Anybody that was a non-commissioned officer, got up there in rank before they left their military service, they were in leadership roles and they had to organize their team, their squad, to
Mhm.
accomplish objectives, and usually following acronyms and processes and procedures that are really just project management in different terms. You know, I still remember
Mhm.
from the Marine Corps, OSMIAC, which is how we organize how we make plans to accomplish missions, right? And
Yep.
when I think back at it, I was like, that's just project management concepts, just in different terminology. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's all jargon, and if once you figure out either the new, like the thesaurus you need to compare or whatever, that's when it like starts to make a little bit more sense. And yeah, I remember having these conversations with my husband and being like, because he did the same thing. He went into security, and then he did EMS, and then like all of this before he went back into aviation, which is what he did in the military. And so it is incredibly common. When we're talking about some of those obstacles for a vet wanting to pivot into the tech space, what do you think some of those obstacles are, and how does NPower help to combat those?
yeah, I'm a big mindset person, right? And I always think that you have to start with the mindset, because if a veteran coming out of the service has convinced themselves that they are stuck on a certain career path or a certain track, or that they don't have opportunities outside a military defined skill set. That's that's going to prevent them from seeking opportunities, from trying things like NPower, like Tech Fundamentals, or our advanced training programs. So the first thing is to really just step out of that mindset, step out and open yourself to possibilities, to being able to expand your skill set, learn new things, and be adaptable. And we support that. We strive that. We do mindset workshops within our classes. We again provide that wraparound support. We have social support managers dedicated to meeting with students one-on-one, understanding their needs and supporting them and assisting them, and making sure that they have the kind of well-being support they need to be successful and to excel at the program and excel at the employment opportunities afterwards. So really supporting that mental side, really supporting that that mindset of what's possible. But mindset by itself is not enough. You have to deliver. You have to show tangible results. And the way we provide that for veterans is getting them the certifications, industry recognized certifications such as the CompTIA A+, Security Plus, Linux Plus, Google IT Support, and many more. These kind of certifications are now a tangible thing that they can bring to employers and have confidence in their conversations with employers to say, hey, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm capable of, and I'm here to do great things for your company.
Well, and that's massive in and of itself, just because, like we talked about in a lot of these, you're coming from a situation where you have a certain amount of choice, but not tons. And when you do have choices, the options are limited. So when you are faced with all of the choices, you can pick anything. But that also means you could pick anything. So like, what if you pick the wrong thing? And so, I can totally see how that would be not only limiting, but potentially just like paralyzing of like, what on earth am I supposed to do at this point where I don't know what the right choice is. And no one can tell you what the right choice is. So, I mean, these are massive questions. Okay. When you think back to some of the people who've come through the NPower program, are there any that come to mind of like, yes, that person, this was great for them? The NPower program made a real difference in that person's life.
Too many to count, to be quite honest. I mean, we have so many success stories. We have a wonderful YouTube channel for any that are interested or want to hear more about those success stories. Highly recommend they visit the channel. But first and foremost, somebody that comes to mind, just because they have a very unique story, is a gentleman by the name of Ivan, who was also a Marine Corps veteran. And he was in a tough spot prior to finding NPower, and felt like he wasn't really receiving the kind of support that a lot of people talk about providing veterans, but unfortunately oftentimes don't actually deliver on. And he heard about
Flag
our
washing is a real thing where they're like, oh, veterans, but then like the follow through isn't really there.
right. And so he kind of experienced some of that in his journey. And when he heard about NPower through another friend of his, and he went through the program, and he was, he excelled at it, did a wonderful job. He landed an internship shortly after the program, and I believe the internship was for Deloitte. And then shortly after, he was actually hired to work for Deloitte. And from my understanding, has been there ever since, continually advancing his career. He's also come back to us to further upskill and gain advanced certifications, I believe, in cybersecurity. So one example, but what really makes his story unique, I just want to point out, and one of the things that NPower prides itself on, is not just uplifting the individual, but uplifting the family and changing that generational dynamic where his wife and then his son actually went and completed our program as well. So it's a pretty powerful story. But I have plenty more stories I could share just like that. We do incredible work, and we're really changing lives.
That's wonderful. And I mean, honestly, it speaks very highly of the program that when he needed to upskill, he came back. Like that is massive, and kind of goes to show a degree of like continued care and support after the fact. Because I think it's you're absolutely right. Flag washing happens a lot, and the veteran community is a space that needs a lot of support and a lot of specialized support. And it is very easy to talk a good game without actually delivering on that. And so, these are people that literally put their lives on the line and we're not going to give them what we promised. Like these are people that if anybody needs assistance, they do. How do you think tech companies can better support and integrate veterans within their organization? Because this is something that we talk about a lot, is how these veterans are received once they enter into these civilian spaces. But in what way are we trying to make that an easier transition for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually want to highlight something that you said that I thought was, really spot on, which is language barrier, right? And even though we're talking the same language, there definitely is a language barrier between the military community and the civilian workforce. I think there's also a lack of, how would I say, regard in the same way. For example, within the military, your unit, your MOS, all these things have a specific culture and have kind of certain values associated with it, responsibilities and respect that comes with it. And a lot of times that's completely lost in translation when you go to the civilian workforce, where a civilian employer might be like, oh, okay, you served, and that's it. That's all they need to know. That's all they care about.
And they
You
paint
check
it all
that
with the same brush
box.
too. Oh, you
Right,
served, so I
exactly.
know what that looks like. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's exactly right. And we actually, I recently did a presentation for our organization. We're always striving to enhance how we communicate and understand our diverse workforce. And the presentation was on why MOSs matter, and talking about how it's important for any employer to understand the MOS experience of their veteran workforce. Somebody signs up, and if you just check that box, say, well, they're a veteran, that's all I need to know, you're missing out on a deep well of knowledge about that person's capabilities, skills, and experience that could benefit you in employing them in the most effective way possible within your organization. So that's just a highlight of, one of the things that I think a lot of employers can do better is, one, understand that there is a different language and a value system for those coming out of the military. Take some time to do the homework and learn it a little bit. It's not a big ask, and
You don't even have to track down a veteran you could do it. You can Google. There's so much information
right.
available. Like, yes, absolutely.
And
Oh,
just learning that is already going to enable you to communicate more effectively with the veterans within your workforce. But then more so, take the time to understand their experiences, take the time to understand what they went through, take the time to understand what kind of skills they gained. Because, and this again goes back to how we started this conversation, or one of the things we were talking about earlier, which is mentality. Even when a veteran breaks into the civilian workforce, they still may feel like their military experience isn't something they need to really highlight or discuss, because again, they get a lot of that veteran check in the box treatment. So they're like, okay, you know what, I don't want to talk about it. I just am who I am, right? But if a civilian employer actually takes the time to understand, like, oh wow, that person was a squad leader and they led very dynamic missions in high stress environments, maybe I can rely on them to do something similar within my organization, right? And provide them the opportunity to showcase those strengths. So it really just allows you to position your employees in the best possible place to succeed and thrive within the organization. So yeah, learning the lingo, understanding the language differences and value differences, and then also taking the time to understand the unique military experiences are all things that will deliver a lot of value for the organization if they choose to do those things.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm reminded of not just companies my husband has worked for that have been really, really proactive and meaningful connections with their veteran employees. And I can remember jobs that he's taken where it's like, well, they clearly hired you because they wanted the tax break. Like, they're not going to do anything with, and they have no curiosity about your military service, how that might benefit them, the things that you learned while you were there. Like, it's galling to me in a lot of ways when that talent and those skills are either disregarded or misused, where it's like, no, why would you put them there? No, oh my gosh, they'd be so much better in that role. Are you kidding? Like, it's oh my gosh, like, communication and miscommunication bugs me to no end, especially when it's like, it's not that hard, just say more words. So I very much appreciate that focus there. Okay, what tips do you have if somebody is a veteran and they've completed a program at NPower or another tech boot camp? Tips would you give them to highlight that work on their resume or online profiles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quantify and connect, right? So first thing, try to make a point of quantifying as much of your work experience as possible. Numbers don't lie, and you want to be able to showcase the kind of responsibility and the kind of volume or massive things that you're responsible for or manage within your military experience. And then, connect that to maybe certain things within a role that you're looking for. So the idea of tailoring your resume. I think it's not a good strategy. So starting with what I think you shouldn't do is just kind of just blanket write out your military experience with no relevance to the role you're applying to and hoping that they'll somehow connect the pieces. That's not a good strategy. Take the time and research the role you're applying for, understand what they're looking for, then look at your military experience, quantify it, see how expensive the equipment was that you managed, how much inventory you were responsible for, how many personnel you oversaw and trained and ensured were equipped and ensured that their morale was up to speed. All of these things, and try to quantify that as best as possible. And then put those two things side by side and say, well, they're looking for somebody that can be held responsible to lead a team to deliver on a product or successfully complete a project. Well, I did that, on multiple deployments with varying teams, in this section, that section, leading different types of people with these levels of hierarchy and organization, so on and so forth. And so now you're connecting those two experiences, right? Or, if we're talking something like a bit more technical, let's say you want to work for an organization that deals with sensitive information or sensitive materials. Well, if you could highlight that you were responsible for millions of dollars of equipment and sensitive information with the military, and you were able to go your whole military career without any damages or issues regarding that, and you followed process and procedures to ensure the security and safety of that equipment or, whatever that sensitive information, guess what? Now that connects directly to that bullet point on that job that's saying, hey, we need individuals that are capable of this. So quantify your experience as much as possible, identify what your employer is looking for, and then figure out a way to connect those two pieces together to showcase the value that you can offer them.
I like that. If I can offer 2 points of my own, somebody who watched this process unfold, think really broadly about your military career. My husband was a remedial PT instructor as like an extra thing that he tossed in, and like the skills developed within that of like having to train people and having to develop like personalized plans for people and all this stuff. That's massive. And it's all soft skills, if you want to refer to them pejoratively, but all stuff that he's put on his resume that he was not putting on his resume until I was like, why are you not telling them about blah, 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 blah. So there's that one. But the other thing I want to make sure people understand is find somebody who doesn't know what you did in the military and see if you can tell them what you did. Can you dumb it down to the point that I can understand what you did in the military? It doesn't have to be super complicated, but can you explain it to somebody who doesn't understand the military? Because you're right, employers absolutely do need to do more work on their end. They absolutely should be. If you are interested in hiring veterans, you should know and be doing that proactive research. But if you are applying someplace that isn't, like, keep that in mind. I think that's, not to put all of the onus on the vets, but we do have to do what we can, for ourselves.
I got to mention that you brought to mind kind of a story. So in talking about taking a broad view of your experience, first of all, 100% agree. And one of the ways you can do that is also think about the stories you have from your service, right? Situations that you were put into that were kind of, maybe, interesting or challenging or funny or what have you. Think about those stories and then see if there's any value from those stories that you can translate into the civilian workforce. For example, so many times in my experience, I was just kind of picked out of the group and say, hey, you're teaching this class. No prep, nothing, like, hey, you're responsible for figuring this out in a couple of hours and running a class, to your junior Marines about it, and just go ahead and make it happen. And I never thought much of it. I just thought it was like, wow, this isn't a really great way to go about this, but it is what it is. It's the mission, you got to accomplish it, right? Years down the line now in my career, I understand that experience has allowed me to go into situations and just be adaptable and flexible, learn on the fly and figure out what needs to be delivered in a short time frame. And so to your point, I never, again, in that transition period, I never would have thought that that experience had value. If anything, I was like, oh, that's a silly thing they made us do in the military. But now it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, actually, I gained a lot of skills from that. So
Yeah.
it translates well. Yeah.
Yeah, training, thinking on your feet, developing something on the fly, the iterating like while you're going through something. There's so many skills you can pull out of that. So many. I love this. Okay. I have one more question for you. If you could design a tech course specifically for veterans, what would it look like?
I mean, we already have those courses. That's what we offer at NPower. One course I want to highlight is that we actually have a partnership with SkillBridge to assist transitioning veterans that are currently serving overseas or currently serving in the military and are, approaching their end of service and are looking for a way to bridge themselves into the civilian workforce. So our SkillBridge program works with SkillBridge with those service members to provide them with an opportunity to upskill and get into a civilian workforce right out of the military. So, we provide that transition process, and I think that's really a program to highlight. But all of our programs, from tech fundamentals to cybersecurity, cloud computing, network and systems administration, app development, they're all really providing different types of opportunities and avenues for veterans to advance themselves. But more importantly, let's say tech fundamentals, which gives that veteran starting out that foot in the door, right? We don't stop there. And I think with any program, it should never be a one and done kind of thing. We meet you where you're at. We'll help you get to the next stage. And then when you're ready, you can come back to us and upskill and advance, kind of like the story I mentioned of Ivan. And we provide you continuous opportunities to keep advancing your career to achieve the kind of wealth and security that you deserve.
I think this is amazing. Really, really cool. Okay. If people want to know like what to do next, what should their next moves be?
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing you can do is just visit our website to learn more about us. We have a lot of wonderful information on our website. Let's see if I can point it to it. So our website is NPower. That's the letter N followed by the word power.org. So just go there, check it out. We have information about all of our programs, success stories, frequently asked questions page. So there's a ton of useful information on there that you can learn more about our programs, and a nice little button that says apply today if you're just interested in getting started. And then in addition to that, check us out on YouTube, on social media, on LinkedIn. And we have a lot of wonderful success stories and great information on there as well.
Awesome. Sergey, thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to get to talk to you and learn more about the program. I genuinely would love to do this again. So thank you so much for spending time with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I loved and appreciated your wonderful insights, and I hope you'd have me on again.
Absolutely. All right.